So when we think about story maps, most of us are really familiar with story maps. And over the past 7 years, over 750,000 story maps have been made. So now let's take a closer look at what story maps are and what we're familiar with. So most of us that are familiar have seen these 8 templates. We've taken our choice of these 8 and chosen which voice will best help tell our story. Well, now we are moving on and changing this look of story maps to the new ArcGIS StoryMaps. So what are we taking a look at? We mentioned those 8 story map templates. We've now combined that into one, and we have mixed and matched those best features of each of those 8, and we can access those within our story maps. So we're going to take a look at what we've created here. So this past June, I had the privilege to being part of the Shake and Fury exercise. And as we heard earlier today, what is this about? This is the national level recovery and response to if a 7.7 earthquake hits the New Madrid seismic zone, brings together these 8 states, and we want to figure out what would happen. How do we collaborate? Well, CUSAC brought together and utilized the hub. We saw this previously. I can access this hub now directly within my story map, but I also have the ability to click and open that hub and access it completely in full frame without disrupting my actual story map. We can go down and we can add in photos and maps. But one of the biggest things that we got feedback was we want to be able to embed videos. Well, now you have the ability to embed videos from within your local drive, and they're now within the native application. So they're saved there for you. You don't have to necessarily use a URL anymore. We can also add in these maps. So here we're taking a look at the lifelines. We have health and medical. We've got communications, as well as transportation. Well, these are just 3 of the lifelines that are out there. So what I'd like to do is jump in and actually start to edit this story map. So by simply clicking on my edit story, I'm going to go back into my edit mode. And what we'll see is that it shows that it's been published, and now I've got a variety of options. So if I scroll back down to where we were, we can see that each one of these maps was a separate sidecard slide. And I can add an additional one in here. So by simply clicking, it pushes me out and says, here's your new slide. Do you want to add an image, a video, or a map? I'm going to go ahead and add a map. So it pushes me back out to my ArcGIS Online organization that I'm signed into, and we can see that these are my maps. I can access my organization, the Living Atlas, but one of the greatest new features is I now have this My Favorites. So what does this mean? Well, these Lifeline web maps were created and published by the FEMA Mapping and Analysis Center. So I'm not the author of them, but I want to utilize them to help tell my story. So what have I done? I've clicked the yellow star and added them to my favorites. So I can simply click on the food and water and shelter. It brings in that map, shows me all my layers, and I can place that map directly into my story. Now, what you'll notice at the top is I went from a blue box to a purple box. It now says I have unpublished changes. So what this is allowing us is to see that we've made changes and we have not pushed them out. So right now, somebody could be viewing my story map while I'm making edits to it. So I've not pulled it down. Now, if I would like to, I now have the option to go in and change that. I can disregard these changes I made, or if for some reason I want to pull back my story map completely so I can make additional edits, more that I was thinking about, and want to take it down so the public isn't interfacing with it at the same time, I can do that as well. And as we saw previously, each of those web maps go into something. So Kevin mentioned this earlier today. FEMA put together this consolidated view of all of these lifelines. So just like I added that food and water and shelter web map, I can now click and interact with this actual dashboard that it's feeding into. So I can see what shelters are open, where the shelter status is, and this is all going to be working for me within my story map. So these are just a few of the new features within the new story map. There is a lot more that we can show and talk about, but I encourage you to take your phones and grab this QR code. This will lead you to the story maps team that will be on the floor throughout the week, and will also lead you to their technical sessions that will provide you with additional information as well. Thank you.